Welcome to Speaking of Pets. I'm Dr. Alice Novotny Jeromin, a board-certified veterinary dermatologist.
And I'm not. I'm Janet Novotny King, the doctor's sister, podcast co-host, pet owner, rescuer, and lover.
We're here to provide pet owners with science-based information to help them be the best pet parents they can be.
Here's today's episode, created just for you and your pets.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Janet, we have not only a fabulous guest, but someone so interesting. And I know we're going to learn a lot about two things. Well, probably more than two. One, how in the world could you start your own pet food company? That's number one. And not that that's not enough, but what is the Iditarod? What is that about? I looked that up today and I'm already confused. So we have Dr. Tim Hunt, who, even though he's a Michiganer and we're Buckeyes, we still love you, Dr. Hunt.
Just this once.
Dr. Tim is the creator of Dr. Tim's Pet Food Company. And I'm just fascinated by how you can make your own pet food and how you got started and what inspired you. So welcome, Dr. Tim. It's such a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show.
Thanks, Alice. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And it's good to have a sunny day.
When I was reading your bio, Dr. Tim, I read, and I love this, that you started your own pet food company with a cement mixer in your garage.
That is correct.
That?
Crazy people, people that are trying to figure out a way to get everything to fit in 24 hours a day and be able to get it mixed up right. So, yeah, the food business was not anything I envisioned getting into, in that I did not enjoy nutrition coming out of vet school. Nobody does.
Right.
Vets, as a rule, are terrible about nutrition. They're not taught anything about it. I was no different. In school, you have to memorize all the vitamins to pass tests and stuff. You don't really understand the whole concept. And it took me getting into racing sled dogs to start to find an interest and passion into nutrition and how we can better serve dogs by feeding them what I think is properly.
So can you give us a timeline? Like, you became a vet, then started racing dogs? Like, how did all that come together?
Sure. I graduated in '89 and I started my own. You too?
Yes, but I'm older than you because I had another career for 10 years. Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
I did too. I was a person.
Ah. and you admit to it.
I do. No, I've always been in school throughout. I never had an off time like with another career. So once I got into vet school in '85, I finished in '89. And then when I got out, I found over time I really didn't enjoy working for other people. So I decided to open my own practice up here in the Upper Peninsula. I called up a classmate of mine who was from up here and suggested the idea. She went for it. We both had about 10 grand and opened a storefront. When we opened a storefront up here, we had no clients except my sister and her brother and their friends. And then we had to drum up as many, people as we can. I did tons of school programs and all sorts of things. Needless to say, in the area were some sled dog kennels of 80, 90 dogs. And I thought, wow, what better clients to have than people with a lot of dogs like that? We can, instead of 80 clients, I could do one client with 80 dogs. But little did I know, mushers, as a rule, those are the people that have sled dogs, are broke. Okay.
Wow.
And I ended up bartering a lot. Okay. Working for them and then taking care of things. And I would trade it for like winter camping trips or dogs or whatever might be rides. And I found that I really enjoyed working with these sled dogs. And after the first year of doing that, I ended up with 4 dogs and then 8. And then soon I was racing around 95.
Oh my God.
And again, short races. And then it slowly branched into more and more over time. But as I got into the sled dog racing, I thought being young and fit and everything, I would kick all these old guys' asses. But it didn't work that way. Okay, I got smoked. Despite being able to run up a hill or a mountain or something, these guys would just trounce you because of the genetics they had in their bloodlines, the nutrition they had that they supplied to the dogs, and the training that they had. So of those 3 parts, I started looking at, okay, what can I do differently? Genetics, you have to buy dogs. I was broke. Training means more time, which I could put in because it didn't cost me anything but time, just slept less. And then nutrition, I started to look at why these guys were feeding what they were feeding. And they weren't necessarily nutritionists. They were people that fed a lot of raw meat with kibble and other things to get this high-end performance out of a dog. And honestly, dogs to me are the second best athlete short of a dolphin. They really can do amazing things. And as I started to break apart what others were feeding, I mean, these are folks, and again, don't take me wrong, with high school educations, feeding dogs ways they've been doing it forever, with dogs that just looked amazing. So as that went along the merry trail, I thought, you know, I'll add this, I'll add that, I'll add this to the mix. Pretty soon I had a base kibble with 12 ingredients going into it, plus raw meat. We would go through 1,000 pounds of raw meat a month, plus everything else, because we had a kennel of about 40 dogs at that point. And one day my wife walked in and she said, what are you doing with all this stuff? Why don't you just put it all together and make a kibble? And I never really thought of it that way. And I thought, well, why not? So I started looking into it, hired a nutritionist to work with me. And then we came out with our first formula. And then the next trick was to actually have it made successfully. What I mean by that is you can have anything made, but to keep it consistently made and then to fine tune it took some time. So that was in '04. We came out with a first recipe, which was the Momentum. And then we kind of moved on from there. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into this. And over time, as we saw how the food performed, we then took it down to different lifestyles. I'm not a big life stage guy. A lifestyle is what a dog does for a living. To me is what's important. And then I feed accordingly. So, you know, a beagle might be doing, you know, one thing, hunting rabbits, and they put a lot of time in, and the rest of the time they're sitting on the couch, versus a sled dog or whatever it might be. So according to the lifestyle, I like to kind of formulate a food based on that. So we have a round peg going into a square hole. That doesn't work. I'd rather have a square peg going into a square hole. Does that make sense?
That is, I mean, you know what I love most about that is you are creating something that you see results with.
Yeah.
And because you're seeing it, it's a one-on-one. It's not some obscure big corporate pet food company that doesn't know really how the dogs are doing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's more personal, is what my impression.
Yeah, it is. And early on, you know, it was not a lucrative thing. It cost a lot of time, effort, and sweat equity. Why we did that. But once we got the formulas clicking, we were able to have 5 teams win the Iditarod in 10 years on the food, and they bought the food. Again, these are, you know, top-notch mushers, but they chose to feed the food, and then we went from there. So to see the proof in the pudding was really wonderful. And then from there, we, you know, brought in different types of variables with the diets to further improve it and so on, which is always fun to tinker. But, you know, I get bored easy.
Well, I love that it was kind of sounds like an old boy network. And here's this young guy coming out of vet school that really is the quote unquote highly educated one. That's a tough barrier to break. I bet you learned a lot.
Oh, I did. I learned more from going up to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories on how to feed a dog as I did from vet school. You know, I learned more from some small village in Alaska than I ever did in vet school. And to me, how it's done and then seeing the results right in front of you as you're traveling and then finishing a race or whatever it might be, really puts it directly, you know, in line with what you're hoping to achieve, knowing that there's not just one variable, not just nutrition, there's other parts to it, but really what you put in should come out looking good at the back end of the dog, right?
Sure.
So if the food is working properly for that dog in that lifestyle, it's all about the poop. You know, it's got to be good. So
we've done a whole episode.
Dogs and Iditarod go through 12, 13, 14,000 calories a day. Okay. That's like 19 Big Macs or something. A crazy amount of calories. You cannot supply that all in kibble. It just doesn't work to get that kind of volume to a dog. but the base of the diet is the kibble. And then we can replicate that in the normal world with sporting dogs with the kibble only.
What's the most common injury you see? Is it ACLs? I'm just talking from a veterinarian point of view in the Iditarod.
Oh, I rarely see ACLs.
Really?
Actually, in all the years of being a vet, 37, I think I've seen 4 ACLs in a sled dog. They just don't tear their ACLs. It's usually some crazy accident that happens. They're just built well. And they're made to do it over many years. You know, they've been selected so these things don't happen. But there are procedures these days where you can fix the knee and they can go back into racing. I've seen that happen too.
So
But
what
that's just not a common
what
injury.
breed are sled dogs? I'm thinking huskies. Am I wrong?
Sled dogs are a conglomerate of many breeds put together. Siberian Huskies, you get greyhounds way in the distance, you have village dogs and other speedy dogs that were put in. And it really is a mix of many things, but the baselines typically come out of northern Canada or Alaska, and then they have other things, or Scandinavia for that matter too. Norway has a lot of good dogs. So genetics-wise, they've been chosen over many years to have the best performing dogs that have the most endurance and the best eaters. Okay, it's all about eating to finish an Iditarod race for the dogs and the person, and then good feet and so on.
So they know their job, right? Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're
Yeah,
in.
they know what they're supposed to do and what they like to do. They enjoy running. If you've ever seen the start of a dog race, or even leaving a checkpoint, and that's in between the start and the finish, the dogs usually get really revved up and off they go. It's what they've been bred to do.
It's serious.
People don't use force to make these dogs do what they do.
Wow.
It's serious business. Is it the same route every year?
It alters odd and even north or south route from typically outside of Anchorage to Nome. There's a north route that was this year, and then next year will be the south route. And then in years where there is no snow outside of Anchorage, then they start in Fairbanks.
So where the human is on the sled, is there a weight limit?
No, there's
No?
no weight limit. There's so much gear that gets sent out ahead of you. They position all your resupplies at roughly 25 different checkpoints, and then where you stop and rest is up to you. There's only 3 mandatories, and the rest is chosen by the musher as to their strategy or what happens. And then the strategy for taking longer rests may denote that you place more supply there, or if you have long camping trips in between checkpoints for that matter, more supply might be sent there, and then the musher comes through, picks up what they need, and then continues on, or stops and stays at the checkpoint. It all depends on the person's strategy. As to weight, many of the winners tend to be small people that don't weigh a lot. They're not real big. There's one guy, Rick Swenson, who was a big guy. It's over 6 feet. He won 5 times. But that's the rarity. Usually they're smaller, light people because obviously it's the weight the dogs are pulling, all the gear, the sled, the person.
Yeah.
And the part that is the part that slows down the whole rigmarole is the person. Okay, so
That figures.
yeah, there have been people that are super athletic win the race and others that weren't. But there tends to be more of a difference towards athletic people these days. As you get along the trail of the race on so many years, different things can make a big difference. A change in booty style, that's the thing they put on their feet, like the material, types of sleds, types of runners for the sleds. Nutrition made a big change in the 90s, and so on. So it's always going to be cold.
Yeah.
There's no bad weather. There's only bad gear. Okay.
Well, now, okay, you mentioned nutrition changes in the 90s, like more fat, more protein. What was the big change there?
It's the fat and the kibble bases. So IAMS made huge differences with the race early on and with actually catching up to what the needs of these dogs who are in Eukanuba specifically. Was working with different racers that were in the race, and they actually watched and learned from the dogs what was happening. And then they implemented it as to trying to find a diet that would work well in these situations, knowing there's so much meat being fed. But that was the rarity. Many foods were out there and people would use them. They would have a good name, but they wouldn't perform well in that instance because of the carbohydrate load was much too high.
Yeah.
And they couldn't process that. So as you ask about fat, these dogs run on fat. It's amazing how they can turn their whole metabolism over to fat, almost 70%, by the time they're a third of the way into the race. And when we're pumping all this fat through the dog, you know, that furnace is just running on those calories. And you need to be able to bring calories in that are usable. So if you look at fat, protein, and carbohydrates, which are the three, you know, nutrients in food, fat is your most calorically dense and most utilizable. Also takes up the same space as 1 gram of protein, which has half as many calories. You need protein, but you don't want to fuel your house with protein. That's like burning the shingles on the house.
Right.
You want to burn fuel oil in the house to keep it heated. You want to burn the wood that makes the frame. Okay, that's the carbohydrates.
Right.
So as you try to look at how to compose or comprise, I should say, a diet, then you start to look at how this animal is fueled, how you bring in the different lines of nutrients. Are there different nutrients in that subheading that work better? Let's say, does beef fat work better than pork fat or chicken fat in certain situations? And they do. Okay, so with different types of situations we run into, temperature-wise, we might encourage one over the other. But again, the base kibble brings in all the nutrients to balance it out. So it's an intricate play. It really is to see what people do.
It amazes me that to learn all that. I mean, like the differences in beef fat versus pork fat. Would you say that dogs that do agility need performance diets similar to those two, or is mushing totally different because it's more of a longevity thing than agility?
Yeah, you look at your type of muscles. You have fast twitch and slow twitch.
Okay.
So when you look at agility, you're looking more fast twitch in that the type of diet you want to bring into the mix might not be as heavily laden as the sled dogs with the fat. Okay. But you need it because you can really increase what's called their VO2 max. Okay. That's their oxygen metabolic rate, let's just say, and you can actually improve on that with the level of fat in the diet. So you can improve your VO2 max in dogs by just feeding a higher fat food to begin with, let alone exercise. And when I finally figured that out and the light turned on after listening to someone much smarter than myself and actually implementing it, I was able to shave a month off my training curve with my dogs by staying on the same food year round and already having them ready with their attributes due to the higher fat food.
Are there veterinary nutritionists that specialize in mushing?
In performance?
Yeah, there's a few out there that I've worked, and I've worked with them off and on. Arlie Reynolds is one. He worked with Karina. He's probably the pinnacle of all the knowledge in sled dogs. Greg Reinhardt.
Yeah, I
from
know
Heinz.
Greg. Yes.
Yeah,
Formerly
from
with
Heinz
Heinz,
is good.
yeah.
Joe Wackerschlag, Cornell is another one.
Yeah.
So there are some out there that definitely have worked with it and put a lot of effort into it. And from that, they've led some very successful careers and opened the doors to a lot of knowledge on these dogs.
I mean, Janet, this is like a whole different area of veterinary medicine. Seriously.
It's like the Olympics.
What? Yeah. Well,
It's like
yeah.
the Olympics for dogs. You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
You know what I was thinking the other night? My guilty pleasure is watching the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the squad. Okay.
And
It's on
she's
Netflix.
telling us this.
Okay. So, but
Thanks for sharing.
having said that, it makes, like, if you get to be the lead dancer, so is it a big competition with the dogs to be the lead dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, great question. Lead dogs, are they born or are they created?
Ooh.
I think they're born, to
Okay.
tell you the truth. They have a certain drive that others don't, and they're just unstoppable with their heart. Okay. They have to be able to understand stuff and learn things, but I tell you, you can have a lead dog that can teach another lead dog in training how to finish a race, and then you have a lead dog that can teach the one next to him how to smoke a cigarette. Okay. And
Like humans.
Yeah, just like humans. So having a good lead dog was the first order of business when I started, and that's the best advice I ever got. Somebody gave me an older lead dog to start with, and that helped forge the frontiers from then on out, from many many years ago. But yeah, lead dogs are something. They're special, and they really make themselves apparent. They don't want to be looking at a lot of dog butts. They want to be up in the front.
They want to be.
So let's say in the Iditarod, you have 16 dogs you start with. You may have half the team that are leaders, and you may rotate them. You may rely on some more heavily than others. Injuries happen, and you have to drop a dog out. So if you have one key leader, that's not going to get you to the finish line so hot. So you need some depth. To me, it's like baseball with major leagues and the minors.
So what has racing taught you about the human and dog bond?
Who taught me that?
No, what have you learned from racing about the human?
Oh, yeah. To me, when I really started to get into it, I used to fish and hunt a lot. And what I found was by getting into the woods with the dogs, I could do what I really liked to do, which was to be in nature, but not have to kill anything. Okay, I saw enough of that at work with animals and end of life and so on and so forth. So the more I spent time in the woods with the dogs, the bond was pretty amazing. It's hard to put into words the connection you get, but they can read your attitude when you walk into the dog yard with where your day is at. And they're just always happy to see you. And you can have the worst day in the world and go out there, and it always makes you feel good. The dogs love to howl, so they would howl at different times of the day. That would always make you feel good. So, yeah, the human-animal bond deal was special, and it's hard to explain. But these dogs did sleep outside.
Yeah.
They didn't sleep inside like a house dog. But then again, I slept outside with them an awful lot too.
You know, a few weeks ago, we had Dr. Cindy Otto on, who's with the Penn Vet Working Dog Group. She's training dogs for various things. She's training dogs to sniff out hemangiosarcoma in other dogs, and she also was in charge of the 9/11 rescue dogs. She said the same thing. She said, when we're training these dogs, because they raise them there, she said genetically, when they get them in there as 6-week-old puppies, you can see who wants to work and who doesn't want to work. And her big thing, and I think you're just saying it without realizing you're saying it, is to listen to them. She said, when I listened to the dogs, that's when I learned everything. And you being in the woods with them, that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat thing that's really hard to explain unless you're out there and you experience it yourself. Not everybody needs to run sled dogs by any means. There's plenty of opportunity with your dog, one-on-one in a city or in the woods for that matter, to have that moment of connection that we all look forward to and hopefully cherish. But with a lot of sled dogs, there are a lot of moments over the years.
Did the dogs ever keep you from making a bad decision?
Yes. If I chose to listen to them, like what you were saying, Alice, let's say we're on a trail and it's snowing and you can't tell the trail to take very well. I mean, they can see it much better than you can and smell amazing. There have been instances where the trail's been completely covered over and they found their way through on a trail out versus me directing them where it got us lost. So, yeah, they have a memory of trails that's really amazing. And they obviously, dogs smell so much better than us. They can tell previous teams have come through. So, yes, I definitely had dogs pull me out of a lot of dicey situations where I just let them be and do their thing.
That's so cool.
And you know what? We had on Guide Dogs for the Blind, and that in the training, they think about it. The dog knows more than you, and you're trying to tell them something, but they're saying, no, you can't do this because I don't care how smart you are, Mr. Human, you can't do this. And that's got to be hard for them.
It is. What I find, honestly, and what I was taught and saw in motion are women are much better dog trainers than guys. Because guys think dogs do things on purpose, and women think dogs don't do things properly because they just don't know. Okay. So again, men always see it that way. And honestly, when I've had this discussion over a few beers with mushers or whomever it might be, it really does pervade through. And the people that are really good dog trainers in the gender of myself tend to be very low key. You know, they're not all wound tight. And I've seen wound tight on both sides of the coin, but I've learned a lot more from ladies training dogs than guys. And I think it's that way of looking at it as to how to take what the dog is giving you and amplify it or promote it. You know, if you have a killer whale that's swimming around a big tank like they used to have before they let them go, I think, somehow you train them to jump through a hoop, right? It's not that you can communicate to them, but you have to work on their level. And what's that level? Killer whale likes fish, you know, it likes to eat.
Yeah.
So with sled dogs, okay, there's 3 things that motivate a sled dog. Food, praise, touch, and sex. There's actually 4, but only the first 3 is what I can offer these dogs. So when I try to, you know, use something to promote a certain type of behavior, it's a matter of cause and effect, timing, and all that kind of good stuff. It's easy to say, it's hard to continue to replicate. You know, training is tough. I don't know how anyone is a parent and they survive it, let alone the kids. So to me, having a dog team is much like that, especially when you go through generations of dogs.
Yeah.
Do most people breed, most mushers breed their own? Or do they
Many
buy
do.
from,
Yeah, many do. Some will buy. Absolutely, they'll go out and buy key dogs to bring into their team from other established people.
okay.
But you know, dogs might cost $3, $5, $10,000. You know, to bring in.
Wow.
They're not inexpensive, and many of these high-end kennels will have, you know, more dogs than they need. They're just selecting the ones they really want to keep, and then they sell the rest or place them.
And so how many do you have right now?
I haven't raced personally since 2015. I have
Oh,
one
really?
husky left, and I raced for 20 years, and the last time I raced was in 2015 in the Iditarod, and since then I haven't. I was able to race all over the world, from Europe to Alaska and Canada, and the West and the Midwest. So we had a great time of it, but there came a point where it's truly a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and it would take up, you know, you would train at night and go back to work, because I worked full time
Yeah.
and then trained full time. There weren't a lot of hours in the day to get it all done. And looking back, I'm not sure how I pulled it off, but had I been able to devote to one or the other, I'm sure I would have been more successful than trying to split duty, but that's just the way I click. But it did bring forth a lot of the ideas with nutrition. And then, you know, as a veterinarian and making pet food, someone can send a picture in of a dog from Arizona showing a before and after, and it's very rewarding, you know, to see that versus, you know, I love fixing broken bones and all that stuff and getting that satisfaction right afterwards. But to see this on animals you don't actually interact with on a wider stage is really great to see as a vet. You know, Alice, what it's like to be a vet and what we're trying to do and why we got into this.
And I've always said, what Hippocrates said, let your medicine be thy food. Because to me, I've seen, you know, and we get all the marketing about hypoallergenic diets and hydrolyzed. You know, Dr. Tim, we get all that. But to me, you've got to think logically too. And my example is, I saw a lot of police dogs because I got to get them well so they don't stop and scratch in the middle of a pursuit or something. And so I had one in that was really greasy, a German Shepherd. And of course, you know, by the book, Dr. Tim, what are you going to do? Put it on fatty acid. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this dog's already so greasy. I'm not going to add more oil to this dog. So I did a really high fiber diet to soak up some of that. And I'm going to tell you, in a month, that dog was a totally different dog. So I think there's, like you said, there's so much logic that goes into seeing the performance, whether it's athletics like you're talking about or skin like I'm talking about. The performance and to see what logically you thought for that dog makes a big difference.
It does. Digestion really all starts at the colon. Okay. It's backwards in what we're taught. To me, the colon's got to be able to work its magic. and that's making a good poop that you can hit with a golf club. Okay.
Yep.
And it's not splattering in your face. So with the colon functioning right, then that means everything upstairs is probably functioning well too. And what's reaching the colon is digested. And it's not undigested food, which then incurs more water absorption or pulling, okay, osmotically. And then you get the soft stool stuff. So to me, when I do talks, I try to explain it that way. And then people they understand it much better that way, I feel. And it makes sense to me logically to do it backwards. You know, you got to have good poop, which means good digestion above. And what does that mean? In times of different stresses, activity or otherwise, does it maintain? And if it doesn't, then something's not right, you know? So it's one thing to have a golden retriever sitting on the couch. It's another thing to have a golden retriever that's actually hunting or jogging with the owner. That is a stress to me, or to the dog, I should say. I see it as a stress. And what I mean by that is a stress is something that might accelerate the transit time of the food through the digestive tract. Okay?
I hear you.
Yeah. So what does that, and how do we slow it down? How do we make that better so they can assimilate the nutrients even in times of heavy exercise? There's many factors that come into play with this. For instance, the high fiber point that you nailed was perfect for that dog. It slowed things down and the seborrhea cleared up, which is amazing, you know, how that works. But I can see how it works in my head vet school wise, you know, but in practicality, that's the first place I would start, especially with the German Shepherd and all their intrinsic nuances that they have that rarely leads to a good stool, especially in a working German Shepherd line, which is fascinating that you pulled it off. And like what you talked about Cindy Ottawa, one day I'd love to meet her. She does some great work. You know, one thing with the dogs you described, there was a study that showed if you fed too high a fat meal consistently to these dogs that sniff for a living, bomb dogs, whatever, you can actually impede their ability to smell.
Wow.
And you diminish their returns on how often they can pick stuff up. So when I looked at this years ago, trying to get the food in different places, I looked at bomb dogs, army dogs, and contacted people and everything. Then I ran across those studies. It's like, this food for the sled dogs isn't going to work for these kind of detection dogs because it'll interfere with it. So it led me down a different path for some other things then instead. So it really is interesting to see how dogs are not little people and things like that can affect them. But again, in the sled dog field, we don't have to have, you know, detection dogs per se. But in the bomb department, missing 1 out of 10 is kind of cataclysmic.
Kind of, yeah. Janet, you've heard me say this before, you know, and Dr. Tim, I'm sure you would agree. Okay, I walk into an exam room and there's a boxer pacing around. The room is full of flatulence, not the humans, but the dog. And, you know, people think it's real funny. And I will get the straightest face and say, how would you like to be passing gas all day? Something is wrong with this dog. This dog is not absorbing what he's eating. And also, when I walk the park and I see people don't pick up poop, and it's like horrible poop, and I'm thinking, that's acceptable to you? There's something wrong going on there, whether it's, you know, inflammatory bowel, but let's start with the food. I mean, it's a simple thing. We all know that there's foods we can't eat, and especially as we get older. And that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Dr. Tim. Do you notice as these dogs get older, whether they're sled dogs or dogs in your practice, their diet has to be tweaked? I think so.
Yeah, and what I see, you know, you mentioned about the diarrhea or the bloppy stools or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In the United States, nobody measures food. They go by volume, okay? I was just in Europe and they're talking to people, and I've been there before and stuff. People usually use weight, okay, over there, grams, okay? They weigh things and then they go from there to feed their dogs. You don't see many overweight dogs in Europe. You just don't. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, they don't spay and neuter as much as we do here because they control their dogs from breeding and the like. I won't get into that. And 2, they actually control the amount of food going into them. So when we look at the U.S. and the dogs, do the dogs look like their owners? Some do, some
Yes.
don't. Okay. I won't, say there's anything bad about people loving to eat, but with dogs, the number one problem I see is obesity.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So the dogs are very overweight in the U.S. because of overfeeding. We love our dog. And two, the high rate of spay neuters, which I'm not against. But when you spay or neuter a dog, you need to understand their metabolism is dropping by at least 20%.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they can still finish that year out in a winning team. Okay. Or whatever. That does not affect their performance at all. Okay. They still perform great. You can actually feed them less. So getting back to, the States versus Europe and seeing what you see out in the field, the icky stuff in the parks, it's because either one, they're feeding too much. So when people call me or talk to me about their food, saying, God, my dog is on this food, I think it's crap. And I ask them why. It's because the crap looks terrible. I say, well, to understand where we're at right now, most of the time it's an overfeeding issue. So if you're willing to do this experiment, let's try it. And what's that, Doc? I say, reduce the amount you're feeding by half for 3 days and see if the stools get better. If they don't, we have an intolerance, like what you're speaking of, Alice.
Yeah.
And if it does get better, then you're just plain and simple overfeeding, the food. So it's a real simple thing, and it also gives people the empowerment to figure things out on their own, which they can do. And again, I find that vets, as a rule, aren't the best with nutrition because of the way we're taught and the Hills alphabet and everything else. Trying to get to some basics, there are more and more vets looking to try to understand nutrition better, but it's a big road to hoe. But getting back to it, so much common sense comes into play.
Yeah.
Rocket scientists are nice, and I know a couple, but I tell you what, they're not making dog food.
Oh, I hear neither are actresses or actors.
Yeah.
Right.
Drives me
Yeah.
They're making
crazy.
wine too, Alice.
What, Janet?
They're making wine and tequila, the actors and actresses.
Hey, because humans drink that. I don't care about that. But dogs can't control what humans give to them.
You were right.
And that's the top thing that bothers me, because a lot of what happens to dogs badly is due to humans. Okay. And it's a horrible thing to say, but it is. I help out in rescue, senior rescue. These little dogs, oh my God. We get them, we rehab them. They're like new dogs because of the owner they had. The little Yorkie with the peeing blood for years has a bladder stone the size of green grapes. Okay. That could have totally been prevented. Oh, I was giving her cranberry. Okay. Don't even get me started on that. But my point is, you're right, Dr. Tim. We didn't get much about nutrition. And I'll tell you, we graduated the same year. Sadly, the gals and guys that were going into nutrition, which there weren't many, all I remember them was carrying buckets from large animal through the halls. I don't even know where they were carrying them. But the focus was on large animal. It wasn't at all on small animal.
No, it was all large animal stuff. It was all feeding dairy cows and maybe horses.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know, that was it.
Think about it.
And-
Human doctors are the same way.
Yeah,
Unless they're-
absolutely.
Unless, there are nutritionists and dietitians, but human, like a GP, they probably take one course in nutrition,
Yeah.
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 And they're the
The
same.
analogy I like to give is the difference in the human side of an MD versus a DO. And my stepson's an MD. He's brilliant. He's great. Get into nutrition, they're just not exposed to that as much as DOs that look at more of a wide, expansive why things happen versus a very narrow realm of diseases, causes, and effects versus what's around you that can cause things to happen. The air you breathe, the food you eat, everything like that. So when I bring up the DO versus MD and if people are familiar with it, they get it. Because I find in the vet world, very MD thinking, very cut and dried as to how to, this thing happens, you do this, and maybe this, but not too much further outside of that.
Right.
You don't really look long-term unless you have like a diabetic animal. Prevention isn't happening. It's always a disease or a condition, and then you solve it. Okay.
Yeah.
Prevention isn't measurable.
Right.
And one thing I'll say with the idea that dogs can't do it themselves, on each bag of food, there's a quote I've got on there. It says, choose wisely for your dog's sake, as they don't have thumbs and can't open the cupboard and make it themselves.
Or open the fridge. Right.
Right, right. So, what did dogs do 80 years ago? They lived on the farm. It wasn't farmer's dog they ate. They ate a lot of scraps, but they also didn't live a long time.
No,
you
that's
know?
true. Yeah.
I've seen generations of people go through now with dogs and stuff through my practice, and they'll talk about foods and how foods have changed and everything. And honestly, what's the biggest reason why dogs live longer is food. The nutrition's
you're
been
right.
and the vaccines, and
Yeah.
the medicine. Yeah, all those things.
I would agree. I totally agree. And
Yeah.
and sadly, you get clients that fight you on it.
Oh,
Yeah, I learned to pick my battles and let them talk it through. It is interesting to always look at all the different ways of considering the relevancy of an argument, I guess you can say. And sometimes I'll hear things in my exam room that really get me thinking, and I'll start looking it up, and they're spot on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's conspiracy.
Right. I'd have to say I've learned, well, like you said, first of all, you got to be a good listener. And when sadly, you can ask the same question 5 different ways and still not get an answer. Like, how long has your dog been itching? Well, we bought the house in 85, and it just goes on and on and on. And then I got divorced. And then, okay, so how long's the dog been itching? That kind of thing. So I'm a good listener, and I did learn a lot from my patients. But there are certain things you cannot change. They're myths and misconceptions. And sadly, the dogs suffer, the pet, whether it's a dog or cat or what have you, suffer because of it. And that to me was the most frustrating.
Yep. No, I agree with you there. And once you can gain the confidence of the people, then you can, advocate for different things I find more effectively, which makes me feel I never want to start another veterinary practice at all. Because I have an established clientele, and from that, it percolates out. And what I'm getting by that is, it's not that I have a bunch of people that will believe anything you say, but they give you the time of day to try.
Yeah.
Versus it's obvious you don't have a clue about what you're talking about. I was lucky enough to have a terrific dermatology professor in college that taught me stuff that sticks with me to the day because of the method by which it was taught was relatable, So I always go back to that when I'm talking about different things to people. How can I make it analogous to something else and not use these big words that have, my rule is no more than 3 syllables in a word when I'm talking to a client, okay?
Right.
Sometimes that can be hard. Demodex is about as far as I can get in dermatology.
and my job on the podcast is to keep you guys from using those multi-syllable words.
Well, right. But
Yeah.
see, Dr. Tim and I have a lot in common. First, we both graduated the same year. Second, we both have our offices in Century Homes.
Oh, cool.
His is adorable. It's going to be in the show notes. Mine was in 1843. I think yours is
57.
1857. Okay.
With a-
And I just forgot the third one. Oh, and is it Ed Rosser?
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, back in 89, there were maybe 5 veterinary dermatologists. We didn't
Very
have a
few.
board certified one at OSU. You did. Ed was board certified because my mentor was in Cincinnati, Dr. Pat Breen. So we did not have very many veterinary dermatologists back in our day, Janet. We didn't.
You're also both from the
Yeah,
Midwest.
very few. Him, Craig Griffin, and and a few
Yeah.
others out there.
Danny
They're probably
Scott.
still practicing.
Yeah.
And it was always fun when they all got together and you'd sit back and listen. And, I was 22 or something. And I was lucky enough to hang out with them at times. And it was fun to hear their perspective of what they're doing. I never thought about how hard it is to teach.
Yes.
It's not easy,
No, it isn't. It
you
isn't.
know?
There are people that can explain things well, and I'm a little OCD, and I just want to make sure I tell everything so I don't forget that I left something out, and then I skip over stuff. Like instead of going from step 1, 2, 3, I go step 1 to step 6, and that's not what a good teacher does.
No, that's not what a good diagnostician does either.
No,
That's
no.
4 or 5 syllables there.
But see, I love derm because it's very visual and it's very olfactory.
Right, right, right.
Also, Dr. Tim, she was also a picker and a digger. Growing
Well,
up, she said, "Oh, you got a pimple. I'm on it." Yeah.
did you know Bob Dunstan, pathology?
Oh yeah, yep, yep. Yeah.
Bob had, when I was a resident, we all kind of studied together, and so he had us up there for a weekend, which I have to tell you, the mosquitoes there are man-eating, to do a review for the pathology part of our derm boards. I love Bob Dunstan. He's in Florida now, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, he was very good, and he would be one I would follow with pathology, his histopath. There's a big difference with getting histopaths done by someone who's in the dermatology field versus not with accuracy.
You're right.
At least I'll say there's a good one at State now who's very good and puts it out there. So it's really fun when you find those people to really get an accurate diagnosis versus finding someone who's vanilla.
And works for like a big corporate lab.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
they-
don't
yeah.
like big corporate labs. I never can get an answer. I mean, you got this stuff. They're always CYA. I like someone that
I know.
hangs it up.
Janet,
Well-
I have a feeling he and I are the two rebels because this is why, to be honest with you, I'm kind of, how can I say? I was a pharmacist before I did this. Okay, that's why I'm 10 years. Had another career for 10 years. And that's why I'm 10 years older than you. And so I didn't do everything. I wasn't 22. I was 31. And so when someone would say, you got to do this, I'd say, well, why? Why are we doing this? And that didn't go over well. But my point of telling you that is, okay, so like you said, textbook, everything's textbook. Right. Back when Atopica was the big drug for allergy, I've had golden retrievers controlled on 25 milligrams a day. Because to me, I don't think I need to do 5 mg per kg every day and have them on 120 milligrams a day. And then they get all this gingival hyperplasia and all these infections and stuff. You got to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Big words, Al. Big words.
Okay, gum overgrowth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to wrap it up, Alice. This has been. I was so excited to have you on the
We're
show.
only 47 minutes.
Yeah,
I know.
we still got. She's such a Debbie Downer. Hey, but I got to tell you something else. Okay, so Dr. Tim's pet food.
I got to
but
keep you all in wraps here. Go
He
ahead.
also makes supplements, and this is not a commercial. But Dr. Tim sent me this. It's CBD with PEA. PEA this is a multi-syllable word.
Oh my
It's
God.
an anti-inflammatory, and it's been proven to help in allergy. So even though I have Annie on immunotherapy for what she's allergic to, when she started to flare, and Dr. Tim had sent me some, I start her on the drops, and I'm going to tell you, it calms that itching down. I'm probably going to start Gidget. Gidget's my China Rescue Golden, because they eat them there. The Yunnan Meat Festival is going on right now.
Yeah.
Thank God I got her out. I wish I could have gotten them all out.
Gidget is more of a little nervous dog.
Yeah, but but see,
Sweet,
she's
but she's
a little
little.
more itchy right now, and the grass pollen is high because we're done with trees. So I'm going to actually start her on it right now too, because you sent me two. Thank you so much. And
I don't
will
know if you guys noticed, we had some action back here on this chair. The cat was there, and my golden Libby. They're very friendly. And then the cat was so loud. I don't know if you could hear, like, let me out.
Yeah,
And
I did hear that, and I saw you exit stage right.
oh my God. And no one else is here to let her out. I'm like, I got to stop her.
We have to ask Dr. Hunt, what pets do you have now?
Yeah, what do
You
have?
sound like you travel.
You have like one, you said.
Oh, I don't travel as much as I'd like to. I'm
Okay.
starting to try to force it to happen more. I only have 3 dogs and a cat right now. This is the fewest animals I've had in so many years. Probably since vet school, to tell you the truth. Actually, it is. It's the fewest I've had since I was in school. So it was a couple of years ago. And I have no 3-legged animals right now, which is very sad. I mean, every good vet needs at least one.
Yeah.
So
Or a
I'm going to
blind
go out
one.
and
Or a
cut a
blind-
leg off this. Yeah, or one-eyed dog.
One-eyed.
Yep, or cat. Yep. No tail, something, some sort of island of misfit toy pets you have to have.
Yes, that's right.
But as you speak about supplements, when I look at stuff, there's a lot of also-rans out there. There's a lot of the same stuff. So when I started looking at CBD, I had no idea what it was about. I started digging into it. And then I realized it actually had some credence. So I sought out the best vet formulator there was, and there was the guy that started Canna Companion and that other big one I can't think of right now. Anyway, I had him formulate for me and put some stuff together. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what's needed out there? He goes, there's nothing for seizures. So we came out with something called CNS Serene, which is really nice as an adjunct for difficult seizure dogs. Plus, it works really great for fireworks and thunderstorms. And then the next thing was, okay, let's move on to the next step. I don't need something everybody has. What else is missing out there? I said, you know, what about skin? And he said there's studies about the PEA. I looked into it, and there it was. It was like, okay, let's bring that one into the mix. So, you know, those are the first few we've got. We've got some other broad spectrum stuff, but there is some credence to CBD and how it works, which is not because of the THC. There's none in there. It's a whole different mechanism that neither one of us was exposed to when we were in school. They didn't even know it. You know, pot was for smoking to get high. It wasn't medicinal per se, even though people talked about it when you had cancer for vomiting and everything else. There was a lot there, if you go back to older medicine, that actually has some bearing. Okay. Quite a bit, if you ask me. So getting into that, the CBDs have their place, but then you get into administration. So if you don't have compliance, you can't really use it. So you got to figure out what's the best way to get it into a cat or a dog. You know, is it the tincture? Is it a chewable? We're coming out with chewables because people like to use that. You just have to use more in it because of the bioavailability. The other thing, there's two more things, and I know we have to wrap this up, but there's three things I saw out there in the marketplace in the world of animals that I thought were problems: skin allergies, obesity, and dental health. Okay. So obesity is like, all right, none of these RD diets ever work. Okay. They just don't. The dogs stay fat regardless of how much or how little you feed RD. Why does that happen? I looked at, and it was like, because people give in to the begging. Okay? They fail because the dogs beg. And I always term it like this: is if you ate Chinese food, you're usually hungry in about 2 hours. You eat Italian, you're not hungry for like 12, right? Why is that? And it's the fat content. And a lot of these diets are just so restricted in fat that dogs aren't sated because of fullness. They try to get away with a lot of cellulose to bulk them up. It just doesn't work in dog world. You have to go to a moderate fat, high protein, certain types of protein, so on and so forth. And that's where we came out with the metabolite diet, which far exceeded my expectations as to working to get weight off a dog. Okay. And it worked right out of the gate. So then the third thing was dental health. Okay. What I see is just terrible dental disease across the board, dogs and some cats, especially cats with that horrible stomatitis. So when I started to look at what to use, there's a few products on the market that actually do work based on the idea of working against the bacteria in the mouth, with causing them not to be able to grow properly and so on. And then that leads to smell and tartar buildup and all that stuff. And then I looked at that ingredient, and then there's a milk protein derivative that really has some really good claims for dental use. And then lastly is that plankton from the North Atlantic. So we put that together as what's called dental dust. And it's something you sprinkle on the food, and it works.
I need that. I did. I seriously, the China rescue, she came to me at a year of age with already that upper fourth premolars are horrible. I've actually cracked some of the plaque off, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
I would love that, and I'll report back to you.
Yeah, no, I'd gladly send it to you. And the last ingredient in there is porcelain plasma, which is an immune stimulant, which will work locally. You know, it does work at the level of the gums. And I never thought of it like that. To me, immune drugs are meant to be put into the stomach, and then systemically it affects things versus a local thing. But then I realized, well,
it would affect that local IgA. You're right.
Yeah, right. I mean, tacrolimus works on fistulas, anal gland fistulas, right?
Yeah.
So why can't we do the same on the front with something else? You know, so that's what, you know, I'm sitting there at night thinking on stuff as to whether or not it's relevant. And then is it all window dressing, or does it actually work? So far, the dental dust has been working really, really well. So long story short, it's always fun to innovate and kind of come up with things. Working with my nutritionist that I think was on your show a few times back.
Oh,
She's
who was
really good
that?
with keeping me in check. And that was Marcy Campion.
Oh, we love Marcy.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, she is a friend of my friend Karen Labar, who worked
Right.
with IMS for 40 years, then went to Blue Buffalo,
Yeah.
but she's retired now. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I just called her today. Yeah.
Yeah. What's fun about being a lone wolf, just like you, Alice, is you can turn the ship quickly. It's
Yep.
not like an aircraft carrier, like some of the bigger companies, which honestly own 95% of the marketplace is kind of shared by 3 or 4 companies. And the rest of these little guys like me. But to be able to move it quickly is good and bad. You know, you have to be careful, but it does allow for innovation. Innovation comes from the small companies, not the big companies anymore. The big
Right.
companies follow up the small innovators is what I see. And that's not our intent. I just like to putz with this stuff. It's just kind of fun.
Well, my other thing, and I know, Janet, we've got to wrap it up, but my other thing with that is I don't like to be brainwashed. I refuse to be brainwashed. You can give me the data and let me think about it and let me kind of read up on it on my own. And I think that's why I kind of have always been like the rebel of the derm world, proudly so, because I like to think on my own. And I
Yeah.
also like to think what's best for the pet and also for the pet's owner's pocketbooks. Because if that treatment isn't financially doable, that dog's not going to get treated.
That's right.
No, it's nice to write it down and have your butt covered, but
Sure.
they're not gonna get treated. I'm with you.
So I have to ask you our guest question.
Oh God, here we go.
What is your pet or human peeve?
My pet or what?
Human peeve. Like what gets to you? What gets under your skin?
What pisses you
Everybody-
off
Pet peeve. Do you mean in pet world or in life?
in life?
In life.
Pet peeves in life. You know, I've been able to calm down a lot the last few years so things don't rile me up. And when people pull in
that's
front of me, I don't
CBD.
want to slam them anymore or chase them around the block.
Oh,
Damn.
But pet peeves are one, when people say they need to worm their dog.
oh,
We need to deworm the dog, you know?
Oh.
I used to correct all of them, but I stopped. Okay, so worming means we give them worms, deworming means we get rid of them. So there's one example of a pet peeve.
that's a good one.
That's a good one. I never thought of it that way. That's a
Oh,
good
my
one.
God.
That's a good one. This has been so fascinating. Thank you so much for being a part of our
I
world.
hope to meet you someday. We have to go for a cocktail because I'm telling you, we just the 2 stories that we could tell and all the people we know in common. Seriously.
Yeah, it's a small world. It's amazing how small it truly is once you get out there and who you come across and the lines they take. So Ohio State had a terrific cardiologist when you were there. I can't think of his name.
Oh wait. Oh my God! And I just
wasn't-
thought of him the other day. He
Wasn't
used
Kittleson, was it?
No. It was, oh my God, it's going to drive me nuts because he'd always look at me because I live in Hinckley, Ohio. He'd go, Hinckley, because he was from the northern Ohio area. Oh my God. I'll think of it at 2 a.m. today.
Yeah. I heard him give a lecture once, talk about the heart, about things I've never even heard of and how it works and stuff. It was like this whole hidden world of things out there that we're just touching the little bit of it as general practitioners. Yeah.
I have
Ohio
to ask
State,
you,
good vet school.
do you remember the people that interviewed you for vet
Yes.
school? That's
Yep.
those are my 3 of my favorite people. They're no longer with us, but because they were older gentlemen. And Janet and I, our parents were old when we had us. So that's why we talk so loud, because all our parents' friends couldn't hear. And so that's why I get along with elderly people, because our whole life we were around old people. But I still remember those 3 that interviewed me, and I just cherish them. And do you remember the names of who interviewed you?
Oh, yeah. One was named Duke Tanaka. He was an anatomy professor who was
Okay.
the nicest guy in the world, but they did bad cop, good cop back then. Okay. And he was the bad cop. And the other one was George Eister, who was a cardiologist who was a dick. Okay. He just just a complete asshole. And I heard about him from the vet I worked for. He talked about Eister, and he graduated in '76, I think. Anyway, I walked into the interview, and there's Eister and this other guy had no clue. And I thought, oh my God. And then they started to talk, and Eister was nice, but he's, notorious for just crucifying you.
Yeah.
Anything he can, because he's a cardiologist. That's what they do. But he had me drawing how to spay a dog on a piece of paper and asking me who my person was that who was my biggest mentor, or people I admired and stuff. And this other guy, who can't be mean if he tried to be, was trying to be tough.
The bad cop.
Yeah, he was the bad cop. And then the next time, the next person, it would flip. And I found that out in vet school because the guy after me I was talking to, and he related the same story and said the next time he was after me, that Eister was the bad cop. And I'm so lucky. To this day, I got in the correct order.
I love Robert Hamlin.
That's it, Hamlin. Yeah.
Oh, he's cardiologist.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for putting up with my long stories.
Oh, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Fascinating stories. Yeah. Wow, we can hardly wait to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Until next time, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and love us. We love that. And Alice, what do you want to say?
I've just had a wonderful time. I'm sorry that it has to end, but I guess it does. So thanks everyone for listening. Kiss your pets for us, and give a listen, not only to the audio version, but check out our webpage, soppodcast.com, where we have the show notes and a lot more info about Dr. Hunt and the Iditarod and all of the fabulous stuff that he makes. And of course, the one that I've got right now for Annie, but the stuff he's going to send me, wink, wink, for Gidget.
Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching
And listening.
We like likes.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Speaking of Pets.
and give your pets a big kiss from the Novotny sisters.
The Speaking of Pets podcast is an SLA Video Production.